This book plate has a very special meaning to hundreds of handicapped people. They cannot come to the library because of illness or disability, so the library comes to them. Books are a source of deep pleasure to Mr. Mackenzie. Through them, he has a window on the whole world. The visiting librarian is a real friend to whom he can talk about everything under the sun. His boyhood days in Scotland, his favorite authors, the way he reads Bobby Burns aloud, the changing frontiers of space and time. The librarian often surprises him with books that are entirely new. She anticipates his different interests. She makes careful notes of what he likes. Mr. Mackenzie wishes she could drop in often, but he knows that he will have to wait the regular time of 3 weeks. He looks forward to the next call. Mr. Mackenzie is one of many who live confined lives in wheelchairs and in hospital beds. The Hospital and Judd Fund Division is the headquarters for library services to these citizens. To this desk come names of shut-in readers, people referred by health and welfare agencies, by families and friends. Here plans are made, new services organized. Buying and processing new titles and gifts goes on the year around. This special service requires its own records separate from the main library. Books and magazines are carefully selected to suit the individual tastes of each reader. Notes and reports are important. They help the librarians remember each person's needs. Must this reader have large print? Have I given this title to him before? Will this book hold his attention? Each librarian selects books for the readers assigned to her. Hospital librarians send out box loads, too. The requests and questions of the readers help to determine the choice of books. Each day, packages and boxes of books are gathered together, checked, recorded, and delivered to every agency of the division. 250,000 books a year reach individual readers in this way. From the hub of the main office, the service moves out into every neighborhood of the city. The truck is a familiar sight downtown on main streets, as well as in the outskirts on side streets. While the librarian is in one home in this section, the driver may deliver books to another. On this trip, he sees a homebound child. Her busy mother can seldom leave the home. She knows that books will help keep her bored and restless little patient contented. Anxious parents need a lot of inventive ideas when children are homebound under painful conditions. Gladys is learning to live with a handicap. It isn't easy. The librarian visits many teenagers like her. She knows they have days of heartbreak and frustration. But Gladys enjoys the sense of confidence that she gets from talking to the librarian. Here is someone who has patience, who will listen, and recognize a good mind beneath the difficult speech. The librarian understands that handicapped young people have a special need for guidance. They want to grow mentally. They want to become independent. They are looking for a useful place in a competitive world. older people have problems too. Work, yes, nothing but work, was Mr. Bandurski's whole life. Now old and frail, unable to read English, he is one of the people who borrow books in the 18 different foreign languages that are loaned by the hospital and Judd Fund Division. Books help to occupy his time. They take him into the world of his youth, a world where he feels at home. A draftsman who earns his living at home, Mr. Carlson has time to develop his hobby of painting. Books are essential tools for the improvement of technique and design. Sometimes he has the thrill of a special commission for a freelance job. Then he can telephone the division office and order clippings, pictures, books, and magazines to help with the new project. Because the librarian can see his work at first hand, she is better able to select the very things he wants. Sally, who operates a telephone sales service, has asked the librarian for this typing book she wants to add to her income at home. The librarian sees that the standard method is not enough. Sally needs a special manual showing how to type rapidly with one hand. Depending on getting exactly what she wants, Sally always has a request handy. Nimble fingers are a blessing to shut-ins like Miss Frances. Without them, she would sit long hours and wait for the world to come to her. Miss Frances, whose illness retired her from an accountant's job, lost no time in self-pity. She loves to please children and now has a ready market for her toys, dolls, and handicrafts. The librarian has a standing order to bring books with new patterns and suggestions. Miss Frances dreams of new creations. Mrs. Warner doesn't think of herself as a shut-in. She is far too busy putting her motherly hands to work. A capable, self-reliant manager, she gets along without burdening her neighbors or friends. The librarian is proud to have a share in helping Mrs. Warner be as informed as any mother who uses the library. Mrs. Warner can select books for her little girl. She can get advice on child care and training, learn of different ways to sew and to cook. Mrs. Warner and every handicapped reader receives the home library service free. This is possible through an annual grant from the Cleveland Foundation. One of the great pioneer philanthropic trusts, the foundation invests and administers the estate of the late Frederick Judd. Income from the Judd Bequest first became available in 1941. Through the vision and generosity of Frederick Judd, the library has been able to put its facilities on wheels and take them to the ill and handicapped. Together, the foundation and the library have built an enduring memorial. People who benefit from the service may also live in nursing homes and homes for the aged. Wherever they spend their later years, the library is on hand to help them to feel at home as cherished and important people in the community. They may listen to book talks, see films, have books for discussion, for learning may continue to the end of one's days. Today, no resident of the Baptist home can retire to a dull existence, forgotten by the world outside. There is plenty to see and to talk about. There is time for curiosity about people and places. A good historical novel is always in demand. And every lady is young enough at heart to enjoy a good love story. Each home has a different personality, just as the residents have different customs, beliefs, and interests to share with their librarian. The philosophy common to all of the 16 homes in the city is expressed by words above the portals of the Orthodox home. They shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree. And as they exchange news of the home with the librarian, the residents can look up to the other words. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. The library has a service of equal value to the people whose days are spent in the great medical centers of the community. In 18 hospitals, the Cleveland Public Library has agencies supported by tax funds. These hospital library stations were established for the use of patients and personnel. At City Hospital, employees visit the library after working hours. The librarian knows her clientele. She is well acquainted with their tastes, their hobbies, and their professional activities. She assembles collections for special courses, checks bibliographies, and keeps the bookshelves attractive with fresh titles. If the book isn't in the hospital library, it can be borrowed from any part of the library system. Sometimes the librarian talks at staff meetings, conferences, and to classes. These are other ways in which she can actively promote the use of books for personal and professional development. Highland View has a large population of chronically ill patients who have experienced years of hospital care. The patients, like the shut-ins, have a mobile library. It is the work with patients that gives the hospital library its place on the therapeutic team. Chronic illness may be suffered at any age. For Bob, reading is one of the few activities possible at this stage of his treatment. This is probably the only event of the day about which he has any choice. Just to be able to say yes or no to the librarian's suggestions gives him some chance for self-expression. The librarian is sensitive to his mood and will not force upon him more than he can manage. His roommate is not so dependent on the care of others. He can help himself, but like Bob, he finds through books a retreat to the privacy of his imagination. Getting to the library is a real incentive for crossword puzzle fans and the avid readers. Staff and patients come and go. Wheelchair philosophers handle their own transportation problems, exchange books, ask for their reserve orders, and swap tall stories. No concern here for diagnosis and case histories. Individuals are known for what they like to read. Time passes quickly in the library. Reporters for the hospital newspaper discuss the next issue while waiting for the librarian. These patients have read more than 2,000 books since they were admitted to the hospital. You may be sure that as soon as a good book is published, the librarian files their orders. Often she wishes that the library could buy more copies to keep readers like these happy. For when they enjoy a book, the news is spread throughout the hospital. The library also provides film programs and book talks. A wide variety of new books is introduced to groups of patients at these programs. This audience enjoys hearing favorite poems, biographical reviews of famous people, exciting stories of adventure in remote and mysterious countries. It is an enthusiastic audience who would not miss these afternoon library programs. At Sunny Acres, the patients have their own special library, used only in this hospital. Before each trip, the librarian carefully prepares the rolling cart, loading it with books especially selected for the reader she will meet today. There are miles of corridors to follow, and she stops to call at the doors and bedsides. Her trips are so regularly scheduled that the patients know when to expect the cart. If you were a long-term patient, believe me, you would be waiting for this moment. Books help the patients adjust more happily to hospital life. They feel in touch with the current happenings when they see modern books and up-to-date magazines. They can find diverting reading on the cart or ideas for planning future work and activity when they have recovered. Books are keys to self-improvement and education. The mental hospital seeks to direct the perspective and interests of the patients outward rather than inward. Therapies help the patients to maintain contact with reality. Public library service reminds patients of the city outside. Mentally ill people do not lack intellect. Their troubles, fears, inferiority feelings are greatly magnified. They are emotionally disturbed. Properly selected books can help. Department heads are consulted in making the hospital library the information center of therapy materials. Books are vitally needed for occupation and recreation in the mental hospitals. Severely handicapped patients need the help of mechanical devices to solve their reading difficulties. Mrs. Howard selects her book from the microfilm collection and reads it with the aid of a ceiling projector. The signal switch to advance the page across the ceiling may be pushed by the fingers, chin, elbow, knee, or toes, wherever the patient has the best control. This remarkable invention has raised the morale of many who would otherwise see only a blank wall ahead. The polio patients in the Toomey Pavilion use projectors that were gifts to the library from the Lions Clubs and other service organizations and individuals. Patients with visual inability to use the ceiling projector have reading frames strung with transparent nylon threads like a tennis racket. This is a satisfactory arrangement when the patient has strength enough to turn the page, or there are volunteers or visitors nearby who are glad to do it. Where injuries immobilize a person and keep him flat on his back, the librarian will offer the loan of a pair of prism lens glasses. These act like a periscope and save neck and eye strain. Without the glasses, it would be impossible for this patient to hold a book above her head for any length of time. Even a newspaper would seem unbearably heavy in that position. Now, what had promised to be the most miserable experience of her life has been transformed by the magic of reading. Today's children can remember a hospital stay as a real adventure and carry home with them the happy recollection of playtimes in the wonderful nurseries provided for them. The library lady brings lots of stories and fairy tales. She stops on her rounds to take time to read. Beginners like Tommy want her to listen, too, while he proudly shows that he has learned some new words during convalescence. Wherever children can be allowed to come together in the pediatrics wards, the library service includes story hours and programs of children's films. Pain and homesickness are forgotten as the children lose themselves in the pictured stories on the screen. For young and old, at every season of the year, the library service continues so that those who cannot run may read. And this bequest of wings was but a book, what liberty a loosened spirit brings.